This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is a Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today, we are going to be talking about the Houston Rockets and if they are the favorites in the NBA playoffs. Then we're going to jump over to our wet boys, the players that just absolutely popped off this week, that had fantastic weeks. We have two new appearances for our wet boy counter, and we also have the 76ers with an injury to Joel Embiid and Markelle Fultz's return. We got to talk about the 76ers and their possible playoff run. Maybe they're going to be the third seed in the Eastern Conference. We're going to wrap it up with New York Knicks talk. I feel like we haven't been talking about the Knicks too much this season, especially with KP being down. We're going to be talking about which prospects best fit the New York Knicks. But before we jump in to the Houston Rockets talk, first off, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. We have a ton of new patrons, and we love their support.
We got two new ones. We got William and then
Shane O'Mac. We got Shane O'Mac 25. So
that's his Twitter handle is Shane O'Mac.
Wonderful.
Big shout out to those guys. And if you want to be a Patreon, head over to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. We have a $2 tier. Ricky and I just recorded the April Patreon exclusive podcast. We also have a $5 tier where you can be a part of our Patreon only Q&A. We also have the $10 tier, which most of our patrons have signed up for, where you're able to become you're able to come on a podcast of your choosing and talk to us about a topic of your choosing. You also check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. See all of our articles, all of our videos, all of our podcasts, all up on that site. And you can also buy some MVP merch over there. We got the Most Valuable Podcast shirts for $22 if you want to rep some MVP merch. Also, rate us 5 stars on iTunes. If you're listening on iTunes right now, head over there if you're not, and give us 5 stars to the Fast Break, the Primetime Podcast, the Onside Kick, the Rick and Johnny Podcast, and our new podcast that you got to check out, the Outcast with Buzz and Juice Man. Anyways, we're going to move on to the Houston Rockets, and we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets if they are the favorites in the NBA playoffs. They just secured the #1 seed. The Warriors are banged up. LeBron and Cleveland aren't really a cohesive unit yet. They've shown some sparks, but overhauling that team at the trade deadline, they're not looking as formal as usual. Celtics are dealing with injuries with Kyrie. You look at the 76ers, they're still young. The Raptors aren't really a sexy pick to take the finals, but they're still playing great nonetheless. Let's ask the question, boys. Are the Houston Rockets the favorites to win the NBA title going into the playoffs?
Ricky.
I part of me wants to say yes, but there's a definite part of me that wants to say no.
It's a hard hesitation on that one.
Well, the big thing to win the finals, no. I'm not betting against LeBron. Until it actually happens, I'm not going to bet against LeBron, especially like we talked about the East with the Kyrie injury thing. I'm back on the LeBron train for them to win the East. I don't think that the Rockets would beat a LeBron James Cavs team in the finals. But the West is kind of opened up now because the Warriors, Steph Curry, going to be reevaluated. It was 3 weeks from when they went ahead and he injured his knee. He's going to miss the first round for sure. If he's not if the Warriors don't have Steph Curry out there for by the time they play the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals, I could see the Rockets going on to the finals and us having finally a non-Cavs Warriors NBA Finals.
Now, one thing, Dave, just to throw out there, the Cavs the new-look Cavs have not faced the Rockets, and the last time the Rockets and Cavs faced off, it was a murdering 120-88. So far, the Rockets are 2-0 when they take on the Cavs, but they haven't faced the new-look Cavs. What makes the new-look Cavs a little more dangerous? Because we've seen LeBron James have possibly one of his best months of his whole career. We're going to get to that in your wet boys, because he's been a 3-time wet boy in the month of March. What do you think is a thing that's changed from the Cavs, from deadline to post trade deadline?
I think the biggest changeup has been the teamwork on this team. Really, it was coming into the season, a lot of ISO players, a lot of egos, and their offensive setup wasn't really a great system because you had so many ball dominant players that could not work cohesively together. Right now, you have LeBron James and a bunch of role players who are performing at a high level when they're out there. Honestly, the athleticism, the speed, and the pace of game that they're playing up to right now is kind of remarkable because you look at that and it's like, really, LeBron James is playing a lot of minutes right now, and his stats are out of the world, but it's a lot of minutes, and this offense really rides on him. The effort levels from the rest of the guys make up for it on defense. He can still kind of go into that, I can save myself mostly, but if I need to do a chase down block at any time, he's still got it. I think that the athleticism that guys like Larry Nance, Rodney Hood, George Hills, being that veteran spot-up shooter, secondary ball handler, like they just nailed fit-wise for this team exactly what you want to surround LeBron James with. I think the biggest question, though, in that matchup against the Rockets, though, former Cavs getting blown out, this new look Cavs, we'll see what happens if that matchup does happen in the finals. What I would look for is to see the wing play, really. It's, how well is Kyle Korver going to be able to sprint around those screens and get open on the other side of the court? How is the ball movement going to be for this Cavs team? Because honestly, like the Rockets, we talk about their offense so much, you forget how good defensively this team really is.
Yeah, especially what they've been doing. I mean, the transformation from last year to this year. I mean, this team defensively has totally changed, and that's really a credit to Clint Capella stepping up and being an absolute monster. Also, Chris Paul coming over and taking some pressure off James Harden. I mean, it's been a fantastic pair. But I mean, with the Rockets too, and talking about that. They haven't been a clean bill of health. I mean, you look at James Harden, he hasn't been 100%, and Chris Paul clearly hasn't been 100% this year. So are the Rockets kind of abstained from that, or are you worried about the Rockets possibly dealing with more injuries down the line, just like every other team has?
Yeah, it's kind of weird that everything's kind of piling up right now, Ricky.
And I mean, for me, the thing that I'm looking to is I'm looking at Golden State versus Houston because, I mean, the thing is with just by saying like, oh, an eventual Rockets-Cavs matchup,
yeah,
I think that's slapping the Warriors
We're presuming
in the
a little
face.
too much, maybe.
And the thing that I find interesting
This is a topic title about the Rockets.
Yeah.
So.
You threw down the Cavs as your favorite team, which means
in the East, but the
we're
West,
talking in the
West as
NBA.
well. It's funny that since February, so since the calendar turned over to February, March 9th, it's the only loss for the Rockets. They've had one loss, and that was to the Raptors by 3.
And
every other game has been a W. Whereas, I mean, the Warriors dealing with injuries, but even their last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, they've only won 3 of them.
Yeah.
So, like, for me right there, it's going to be interesting to see just the remaining of the schedule going forward because, like, for the Rockets, they have the 14th toughest strength of schedule moving forward, where Golden State has the 26th toughest. So it's like the Rockets, if they continue to win at this clip, they just beat the Suns tonight before we're going to record. If they continue to win and they have a tougher schedule than the Warriors, then maybe I would worry about Golden State going into a playoff against the Rockets because I don't think the Warriors are going to get bounced in the first round.
Well, let's talk about that because Steph Curry is going to be out most likely for the first round for the Golden State Warriors with him dealing with his injury.
MCL?
The MCL. And looking at that, even though if they don't finish out great, again, if they show enough in the first round, I'm not too worried about it because we've seen this plenty of times in every single sport. You could be red hot at the wrong time, and you can just completely crash hard. So the Warriors might just start hitting this spike, and we also see again Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I mean, these are veterans when it comes to the playoff. I mean, consistent runs, deep runs. They might be tired from those runs, but Steph's going to be hopefully healthy and at least rested up as much as he can be at that time. So do you possibly see that happening, Dave, where the Rockets might be peaking too high and the Warriors might be peaking at the right time or be able to peak at the right time, especially with the weak schedule?
I don't know if... And like you said, for other sports, it's different. Like baseball is one of the weirdest sports when it comes to streaks and how hot a team is running in the playoffs. Like I remember way back to not way back, but mid-2000s or early 2010s, like the Rockies team. Yeah. That was just straight fire for the last month of the year. They just
get bounced in the playoffs.
They hit the playoffs and they just hit that wall. I think with basketball, it's a little different than baseball. For me, basketball is like, if you're in a groove, you want that groove to roll. And honestly, it's so much easier because there's less potential interferences. It's really just down to like, can your team execute and do you not get injured? Like baseball has so many little things that can happen. So I think that like for the Rockets, they're hot. I think that's the most important thing is that they keep this rolling into the playoffs because you saw what they can do with Capella, CP3, and Harden. Just if you do those 3 games, like I think they've lost like 3 or 4 games all year when those guys play together. It's insane.
2 things I'm kind of thinking. First off, I'm going to compare these 2 teams to a Final Four matchup we're actually going to see this upcoming weekend where it almost reminds me of these 2 teams could be like Loyola and Michigan, where Loyola, on the college side, haven't lost since January. Like, they've been on a clip since, like, right around February, January.
Right.
Haven't lost in the Final Four, where Michigan's a team, they got hot in their conference tournament. They turned it on. I could see the same thing for these two. Rockets more the Loyola side. Hey, ever since February started, we've been on a clip, and we're just rolling. We're winning games. We're the number 1 seed in the West because of it. Where the Warriors could be, all right, we're going to take a little while. We'll get our groove. Steph will come back. We'll get our groove in that second round before we play the Rockets. The interesting thing, though, is if the standings hold up like they are right now, the road for each team could be interesting because the Warriors would potentially have to go through the T-Wolves, who people are asking, can they upset the Warriors? Then they would have a possibility of either the Pelicans or the Blazers in that second round game. I would rather see the Pelicans if I'm the Warriors. I would not want to see the Blazers in the playoffs. But then you got the Rockets. Yeah, I think they can get through the Jazz easy peasy lemon squeezy, but then there's a possibility that you can see Russ Westbrook and those Thunder in the next round, or possibly the Spurs. I would almost say I'd rather see the Thunder, only because the Spurs in that second round, I would wonder if the Spurs would go, all right, a little bit of redemption here, and emotion is going to play them up. Not saying that I don't think the Rockets are going to get to the Western Conference Finals, because I think they are.
But with that, again, we don't know if Kawhi is going to play this year.
Exactly.
We haven't. That's a complete mystery right there. And the reason they were winning that first game was because of Kawhi, and Kawhi obviously suffers that injury. And we
You're
saw
talking
without
about the Warriors in
the Warriors versus
series,
Spurs. Yes, you're talking about the emotion of the Spurs going up against that.
Well, I'm saying going up against the Rockets, because they would play the Rockets in the second round if they won.
Oh, my bad. I don't know what. So what emotion would be going in with
because
the Spurs?
They had that series with the Rockets before the Warriors, where they should have the Rockets should have beat them, and then the Spurs basically bounced them out.
Yeah, Harden ran out of gas.
Yeah,
I was just thinking more of the Warriors Spurs. So
there's that.
A lot of different.
That's a big storyline.
What do you think is the hardest route, though? Do you think it's the Warriors with the injuries to Steph, with the Draymond, Clay, and KD all being banged up, or do you think it's the Rockets with the possible emotion of San Antonio?
I would say the Warriors, only because to me the Trailblazers are that dark horse. They're the X factor of how are they going to do against one of these teams when the chips are on the table and it's playoff time.
For me, it's 110% Warriors. It's not even close. Like this is a Warriors team that, while it's compelling what they're doing with these injuries, and it's hard to make a team who just dominated the NBA an underdog going into the playoffs. I mean, they just spanked teams left and right, but because of all their injuries, because of everything that's happened up to this point in the year, they are almost building an underdog vibe to them. If they're coming into the playoffs, like you said, they won 3 out of the last 10.
Yep.
Like, it is going to be rough for them. And I know Quinn Cook has put up good numbers, but Quinn Cook is not Steph Curry. He's not in the same realm. They barely play the same sport at this point. It's just I'm concerned because Steph is truly the guy on that team that matters. Like, as much as we want to say KD may be the best player, Steph has the most impact to that team, top to bottom. KD, I'm worried that this guy's going to pull a Draymond, and if they make a deep run, he's going to be technical fouled out, and miss a game. And just the way that he's kind of changed his whole personality playing with Golden State, it concerns me from just are you a smart basketball player still, or are you doing this because you feel like you're entitled now because of how good you are?
I mean, this is going to be different, though. I mean, this is postseason. Again, KD's been here before, and
right,
I know what you're saying.
He's at 14 technical fouls this year.
He's close, but I mean, what?
I know it resets for the playoffs.
Yeah, it resets
16 is instant one game. So he potentially could get before the year's over, but still, it turns into the question of if you're going to keep being this emotional in the playoffs when things get grittier, when things don't get called as often,
But
could we
again, KD might change his expectations because it is the postseason. He's been there before. I mean,
if you
KD
think he's
is not
just, got regular season dog days mentality, I mean,
it could be. I mean, it just could be something that everything's been going wrong for him. Through the regular season, people keep falling down. People keep getting injured. You're not the best team in the West. I mean, your expectations could be, just completely moved. But again, he's a professional. I mean, this is a guy that's been here before. KD isn't one to to let the emotions get the best of him, at least on the floor. I mean, again, seeing how many technicals he has this year, this isn't something that is in KD's natural emotions. So, I mean, this is something, too, with, being such an experienced and veteran team, knowing what that Draymond loss happened to them, back in 2015, I think that the Warriors at least are smart enough to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because, if you're going to lose Steph and then KD for a game, let's say it happens in the first round, that's going to completely deplete that team. And, if a team like, New Orleans gets one win on you, or the T-Wolves get one win on you, that could possibly be enough to just swing everything their way. And if KD doesn't come back, and, Jimmy Butler, when he's healthy, is able to slow down KD enough, that might possibly mean Warriors get bounced in the first round. That's crazy to say. But, again, I think the Warriors and KD thing, KD's going to be fine when it comes to the playoffs.
You think he'll rein it in a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, this is a veteran. He knows what he's doing in the playoffs. He hasn't gotten let the emotions get the best of him, at least on the floor, maybe on Twitter, but not on the floor before. So I agree with you that the Warriors have the toughest road in the playoffs, but that's just mainly due to the injury.
Yeah.
But when Steph comes back, and let's say he's near 100%. I mean, we've seen Steph before not be at 100% in the playoffs, and they still be fine. Let's say he's around 90, 85%. I still think that this Warrior team should be favored in the Western Conference because, this Houston team's been fantastic. James Harden, Chris Paul, one of the best backcourt duos we've seen ever. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous what they've been able to do this season, but still, those are three guys in Clint Capella, James Harden, and Chris Paul. And but even then, I would still take the four Warriors over anybody. Yeah. I would take Draymond, Clay over Clint Capella. Is what I'm saying. And the Rockets might have a better system. They might have a better bench, better depth. But still, I would take the 4 stars over the 2 stars. So, I mean, that's the thing is, and plus they have the veteran experience. So, I think a lot would have to go wrong for the Warriors to be bounced before the NBA Finals.
Well, and for me, the thing is, the only matchup for the Warriors before a Rockets-Warriors Western Conference Finals that I don't want to say scares me, but I'm going to say scares me, is a Trailblazer-Warrior matchup. Because I know the regular season, you can go off of, how these teams kind of played. I know the playoffs is a little different. But in 3 meetings this year, Blazers are 2-0. And the last time they played, Steph Curry was not on the floor. And the Trailblazer balled out in 125-108, beat them down. Now, this is all dependent on if Steph Curry does come back for the Warriors, but let's say he doesn't. He's not able to come back for a second round. A Steph Curry-less Warriors, I know that kind of was a little too many lesses. Without Steph Curry, I would almost be worried for the Warriors against the Trailblazers. If Steph's out there, I'm not worried.
So when do you get worried?
I get worried if Steph
because he's projected to be back by the second round.
What I'm saying is if he's not, or if
he gets reevaluated
clear
and he's not
100%. Ready. I think the Trailblazers are the only team that could possibly take down the Warriors, a non-healthy Warrior team before the Rockets.
Is that the biggest flaw for the Warriors? Is just the injury and health problems? Like, what would you say the biggest weakness for the Warriors is, and what would you say the biggest weakness for the Rockets is, Dave?
Warriors is bench depth. That second unit is. I mean, Sean Livingston's no longer Sean Livingston. Like Chandra Iguodala, the dream. What's
Sixth man of the year.
Sixth man of the year for multiple years. Like that, it's dead. It's done. They had their time. I'm sure during the playoffs, maybe we'll see like a game out of each one of them respectively. But their bench depth has been gutted year after year after year, and at this point, like we're bragging. I mean, Quinn Cook dropped 30. That was pretty cool. But like he's a one-way player. He's clearly not, a starting level caliber guy. Even a 6-man is like he's kind of questionable. But like they just don't have it. And when I look at a team like the Rockets, where they have fantastic rotations, their system allows for these guys to really excel. Their spacing, their shooting, that really is kind of what sets everything apart. Is this Warriors team? They have injuries and they have depth problems. That together is kryptonite. Like that's how you lose. And it's just you have to. I mean. You're going to have KD playing 40-something minutes. You're going to have Draymond playing 40-something minutes. And obviously, like, if you can get the minutes out of everybody else, awesome. But those minutes, they're off the floor. I'm not saying LeBron off the floor bad. Like, that plus-minus was insane when he was off. But you're going to have massive problems because other teams don't have those depth issues to that extent. Nobody's got an amazing bench, but at the same time, like... There are teams with benches that are a much higher caliber.
And then on the Rocket side, what's the biggest weakness that you think that the Warriors or any other team in the Western Conference or Eastern Conference could really exploit?
For the Rockets,
because every team has to have a weakness.
No, that's what I'm thinking. Like, so here's the weird thing: the Rockets they can play at the quickest pace and they can play at the slowest pace, and they flipped. And during months of the year, they've done both. And during those months, they've been successful regardless of how that's played out. I think the best way to abuse the Rockets at this point is to try to take out that shooting from Chris Paul force the ball into James Harden's hands more than he's used to this year because he has gotten comfortable being that off-ball guy, or at least a split role. So if you can get him with the ball in his hands more often, create opportunities for more turnovers, really try to pressure him down and wear him down, because we saw what happened last year when he gets worn down. He's much, much more prone to making mistakes with turnovers, poor decision making. Like, he's played very well this year, but I think that's because during those games, like we said, when he has CP3 out there next to him, he is playing at a different level. I think that you have to attack Chris Paul to try to limit his role and force the ball through James Harden.
Well, I mean, Chris Paul health in general, because like since the 20th of March, Chris Paul's only played one game. That was against the Bulls.
But also, how many important games?
Well,
like
exactly.
The thing is,
how many DNP coaches' decisions?
Yeah, well, they can, and at this point, they can rest Chris Paul for the playoffs if they want to. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I think is the Rockets' biggest weakness is fatigue. Like you mentioned earlier, Dave, one of the big reasons why the Rockets fell short last year was James Harden was just out of gas.
But that was because he had no one to rely on.
I know. But like I look at this year, he's already, he's averaging about one less minute per game, but whatever. It's one less minute per game. It's in the same ballpark. So you're still averaging around 35, 36 minutes per game. In the playoffs, if you're expected to do more, and let's say you go up against, because the teams this year, I would say, except for the Jazz, getting the number 1 seed was huge for the Jazz, because I don't think James Harden is going to have to expend a ton of energy against a Jazz, a Clippers, or a Nuggets team. The Clippers will be interesting only because they would come in with that emotional, like, we want to take down CP.
And they have a big to match up with Capella.
Like, that one would be interesting, but Nuggets, Jazz, I don't think he would have to expend a lot. If they had to go, let's say, 2nd seed and have to go up against the T-Wolves, then it would be a different story for them when it comes to fatigue.
I'm not too worried about fatigue when it comes to the Rockets because you mentioned he's playing one less minute, but also, again, he does have Chris Paul to rely on, and he's also played less games this year. He played 81, 82, I think, for the past 3 years. James Harden, that is. And then this year, he's at 66 right now. If he plays the next 7 games, he's not going to hit that 80 mark. He's going to be a little bit under. So he's played about 5 less games this year. Again, I mean, that's not crazy, but he's still going to be able to take a break. And then also the addition of Chris Paul is going to change that. So let's ask the question, kind of break this down, and just get to the true answer of this topic is, are the Rockets the clear favorites in the NBA playoffs? Are we saying the Rockets make it to the Western Conference Finals?
Yeah.
No matter who they play?
Yeah.
I think for me it's a yes. Yeah.
Okay. The Warriors, are they a for sure bet to get to the Western Conference Finals?
Nope.
I'm going to say 75%, and it's all based on how Steph comes back.
Okay, so let's just say it is the Warriors for right now.
Yeah.
Warriors versus Rockets. Who wins that matchup, and why do they win it?
With me, it's nothing like this is calculated why. For me, it's almost the same as LeBron.
I mean, what's going to be the reason they win? I'm not saying like, they're going to shoot 50% from the field.
In my head, I look at it where if we're talking Warriors, Rockets, Western Conference
That's what
Finals,
we're talking. That was the question.
I will pick the Warriors until I'm proven wrong. Like, it's kind of like a LeBron thing where it's like you don't go against LeBron. I'm not going against a fully healthy Warrior team, not 100%, but everyone out there playing.
Right.
I'm not betting against them until I am proven wrong, and someone proves to me that they can beat them and not have LeBron James on their team.
Been to 3 straight finals,
and
and they have
Draymond Green get teed out of a game.
Been to 3 straight finals still, and they still have Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, which is still probably the scariest starting lineup in NBA history, or at least NBA recent history.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
So, Dave, Warriors versus Rockets, who wins why?
I'll go ahead and put myself out there. I'll say the Rockets will win in a series. I think that this Rockets team was built incredibly well. I think the depth is there. The only thing that concerns me, the last kind of thing for them to hit this year is the full integration of Joe Johnson. Like, Joe Johnson doesn't fit the scheme. Joe Johnson was picked up as a wild card. This guy's a veteran. He can knock down shots. He's ISO Joe. I mean, come on. Everybody loves it. But he doesn't fit the system. And I'm just going to be that guy. That probably wasn't a good pickup. On paper, it sounds, add a veteran scorer, great presence, great locker room guy. But, he doesn't play the way they want to play. And honestly, his first couple games, he looked awful. He clearly disrupted the offense. Defensively, he wasn't giving you enough. So I think that's...
But is Joe Johnson going to tip the scales that much?
He probably won't get a ton of minutes. So that, if everybody's healthy, I don't think it's a huge thing. I honestly think that it's just purely the system works. The coaching is dead even in my mind at this point. I think that the best thing for the Rockets is just that they've done different things throughout the year. They've not won one way. Like, obviously, the three ball is key to them. Them being the high efficiency team of threes and, dunks is awesome. But at the same time, like, it's just how it fits in. It's how they, like I said, pace up, pace down. They can match you. They can run with you. They can outshoot you. They do everything to the best level in the NBA right now. And like Ricky said, they've lost one game in the last month and a half.
Since February flipped over the calendar.
Well, yeah,
it
was since the Pelican loss, which was January 26th.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I think that momentum, that level of play definitely sets them apart. And I understand, yes, if we get everybody healthy back on the Warriors, it's going to be an incredible matchup. It'll go 7. I want to give the edge to the Rockets, though. I think they're ready to kind of take over the mantle for a year. I
don't know if I agree with you, but I think the biggest thing will be the point guard matchup. And it's not only if Steph's 100%, but also Steph at 85% against arguably the best defensive point guard in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's going to be probably the biggest matchup. And I think that's going to be how the team wins. If Steph's able to come out and be efficient from the field and be able to move the ball and play decent enough defense, I think that's going to be the reason this team wins. But if Chris Paul's able to slow down Steph, hold him under 20 points a game, and hold him to an inefficient a playoff series, which we've seen from Steph before, where he's shooting 3 of 11 from 3. If he's able to slow down Steph on that outside, I think that's what's going to be the edge over. And I think that it's possible, but I think I have to lean with Ricky just in the fact that, again, this is a Warriors team that absolutely ran through the playoffs last year. And yes, the Rockets got Chris Paul, but does that mean that this, again, we were calling this team the best team ever last year.
Yeah.
Does that mean that, now the Rockets have enough to say that, hey, we're possibly beating the best team ever, and we're going to, be able to do it just in a year span? I don't think that's going to happen. I still am going to lean on the Warriors side, and I think we're still going to get LeBron versus Steph and KD and all that, and we're going to get round 4 now between those ones.
Mm-hmm. Totally possible, yeah. I think just the weirdest thing for me is trying to figure out, like, the one matchup, you think it's down to point guards. My thing is, like, remember how cold Clay went last year offensively? Like, yes, he was a defensive god for a while, but, like, offensively, he shut down. And guess what? Like you said, they still have, the best offensive player efficiency-wise we've ever seen in Kevin Durant. They still have, if healthy, a Steph Curry. So I think that's just kind of the weirdest thing is, like, that matchup for the guards is going to be so pivotal. But then you look at Clint Capella down low. Who matches up with him? And that's kind of where I want to take. Is like, But also, I mean, I would let Clint Capella beat me up on the inside if I'm able to slow down James Harden and Chris Paul.
I'll trade 2 for 3s all day.
Like, if
who
if
trades
I'm picking
2 for 3s evenly like that? That's the thing.
But
Warriors
hold on. The thing is with that is, if we're looking at the big 3. If I'm saying one player can beat me out of that big 3, it's Clint Capella.
That's the one you want to force them through.
Yeah. You want to force them through Clint Capella. It's a big 3 in the sense of those are the 3 best players, but Clint Capella, to me, I don't think to anybody, has proven that he could take over a playoff
Plus,
series.
have we seen Clint Capella in the type of stage and atmosphere that series would be?
I mean, not to this point. Last year's playoffs was basically his first, coming out party. But, I just think that they've got the potential, they've got the shooters, they've got the system, they've got everything lines up